Ruben Amorim has revealed which player he is in love with as we run through some of his key comments from the recent interviews that he's given. Manchester United's transfer target confirms he is leaving his current club, and United are linked with a move for Atalanta midfielder Ederson, in a rundown of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, please smash a like on the video. Let's jump straight into it. So Ruben Amorim's been busy last couple of days, given some fantastic interviews, I think. One in the press conference, good interview with Gary Neville, and one to MUTV as well, where he's kind of been, sharing his thoughts around the club and certain aspects around it. So I'm not going to run through all of them because they were two 20-minute interviews and another like 5 minutes or something. But there were some really interesting points that he made on a few of the videos that I want to run through with you. And then you can let me know what your opinions are in the comments as well on the. But I thought it was really good interviews. I like watching him. I like listening to the way that he talks as well. So we'll run through them, and again, get involved in the comments. Let me know what you think about the kind of key points that I'm going to highlight on here. So, firstly, when he was asked specifically around what the issues he saw at United, or what he kind of thinks will be, one of the main kind of issues with the current team. And he said, we lose the ball too quickly. We win it, and then we lose it. That's one of the things that we worked on this week. If you keep the ball, you can't put pressure higher up. And if you're higher up, you can put pressure higher up. And if you're higher up, then you can press better. Everything is connected. So I'm immediately kind of highlighting one of our biggest issues is that we do lose the ball really quickly after winning the ball, and that's why we kind of see that basketball style of play under Erik ten Hag, because we would win it, everybody would then run forward, then we would lose it, everyone's in out of position, then everyone has to run back. And that was one of the kind of key areas that he said that they've been specifically working on this week. It's not just necessarily pressing and all of this stuff. Is actually keep the ball, because if you've got the ball, then you can play a higher line. And then on a higher line, it makes things easier for you to press and win it back, because we are actually quite good at winning the ball back. We've got some good players in the team, Mount, Fernandes, Ugarte. I think Mainoo's good at intercepting the ball as well. Do you know what I mean? So we've got some good players in the middle of the pitch that can actually press and win the ball back. It's just we've been winning it, losing it, and that's why it's kind of turned in. So that's one of the kind of key areas that Amorim's identified straight away. And I love that, because I do think it is one of our kind of big Achilles heels. But and then he also said, the club contacted me because they saw something. I'm not going to try to understand what Mourinho, Ten Hag or Van Gaal were missing. It's a waste of time. So he was kind of asked around, let me go for the next part. So they brought me in because I'm doing something clear. When you look at Sporting, you know what you're going to get, and I'm going to continue on that path. I'm going to do it my way, which was really kind of telling, because this is in the interview from Gary Neville, when he was asked specifically around, what went wrong with previous managers, and they're all kind of good managers, and he basically said, it's a waste of time trying to work out what happened or what went wrong with previous coaches, but also very clear that he was brought in for a specific reason to play a specific style of play, and he is not going to change that, which I absolutely love, because I think that's been one of the downfalls of previous managers, especially Ten Hag. Ten Hag came with his style of play from Ajax, tried it. We lost our opening 2 games, and then he kind of abandoned it, and we never really found that rhythm back, or never really tried to implement it again. Whereas it looks like Amorim's just going to be like, I don't care about the results. I'm playing it, doing it my way, because there's a reason I'm here. That reason I'm here is because of the style of play that I played at Sporting. So I'm going to try and replicate that at Man United, which I absolutely love. I love that kind of confidence in him. And I just hope he sticks with that. But importantly, I hope that if the players are not good enough to play that system, they are removed, and he is backed in the transfer market by, Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox. And he's got some comments on those in a second, which I'm going to run through, because that's the important thing. If the players are not good enough to play that style of play, we shouldn't be changing the style of play for the players anymore. We should be looking at the recruitment and recruiting better players in that can fit that system, in my opinion. But let me know what you think in the comments. And then specifically on recruitment, he said, I really don't think about it. I need to know the players. Then we will look at it with Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth. We need to improve recruitment, but it's a process. There's the data, and you have to understand the profile. Then they have to understand how I want to play and what I need for each position. And then specifically, and then it's very clear that we're trying to do it very, very quickly, but it's a first step. If we start without having all the data, the physical data that each position requires, the character of the player, if you don't have a clear process, we can't start buying players. Our goal is to build that. Then when the transfer window opens, we'll see. But I'm not thinking about it at this moment. So again, I thought that was really interesting because it's what we've been saying over the last few weeks as well in videos, where Amorim's going to have the chance to assess the squad, assess the player, but also the recruitment's going to be done based on data and actually what profile of player fits that position. Just on the transfers is where we did kind of say, look, that he's in kind of control, or he has the final say on transfers, which I think is absolutely correct as well. How it looks like it's going to be working is that Amorim might say, right, I need this position and I need this specifications from a player for this particular role, and then Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, along with Christopher Vivell and the scouts and stuff, will then analyse all the data, put it all together and look at who the right profile of player is to fit that particular role, and then it will be down to Amorim to choose which one of those players he likes, because you can't sign players without the manager say, because then he's not going to potentially play them. So he does need that final say, but I don't think he's going to be going to the club and saying, I need this profile, can you go and get me X, Y and Z player? It's going to be, I need this position fill in. The club are going to do all the scouting and the recruitment and come back with some profiles or some player names for Amorim, and then they'll decide together which ones fit the bill, and Amorim will be like, yep, that's the player that I think I can work with because of, I don't know, because of the data or the science or the type of player he is, the character and all that stuff as well, which I absolutely love, because I do think that is the right way to kind of go going forward, because then that way if you do switch your manager, you're not making wholesale changes in the squad anymore. You're not signing players that Amorim wants, and then if he goes, you're then stuck with loads of former Sporting players, for example, or like we are now because we signed some players that Ten Hag specifically requested. You have that big turnover of players, but no, you're just buying players for a particular style of play, and then a new manager coming in hopefully would fit that style of play if things don't work out with Amorim, and I like that. I think that's the right kind of approach, which was really interesting as well. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Amorim on Mason Mount. I have to tell you that I love this boy. You can see in his eyes that he is determined, and that is the most important thing for me. I know he has suffered from injuries, but now he is trying to stay fit, and we hope we can that he can continue to be fit to show all the talent that he showed, for example, at Chelsea. And then he also said around Mason Mount that he has played in this system before, so it's perfect for him. I have two positions for Mason Mount. He should be happy. So Amorim kind of bigging up Mason Mount there, saying that he's a player that he loves, where he obviously clearly loves his attitude and his work rate and everything like that. I kind of agree. I think Mason Mount is a good player and he does have those things in abundance. It's just whether he can stay on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's just proven over the time that since we've signed him that he is very consistently injured. Hopefully that may change with better management or better substitutions or a slightly different style of play, playing more in a system where you're not demanding the amount of running or sprinting that we were under Ten Hag, because as we mentioned in one of the previous ones, the fact that we would lose the ball so quick does turn into that basketball game, which is not really ideal for players, I don't think anyway, in their physical kind of conditioning. So maybe that could kind of help. But, you know, Amorim really bigging up Mason Mount there, who could become a key player. Two different positions as well. Would that be as one of the 10s that he's going to play, and then maybe as an 8 next to, I don't know, you could play Ugarte and Mount in midfield with Ahmad, Fernandez, Højlund up front. So I think it'll be one of those two positions in the either a little bit deeper as an 8, more of a box to box, or in one of those advanced 2 attacking midfielder positions personally with Mason Mount. But again, I like Mason Mount. I think he is a good player. I think he could fit this system really well as well. It's just whether he stays fit is the big problem, isn't it? And we're just going to have to wait and see how that develops. But, you know, again, another interesting comments from Ruben Amorim regarding Mount. And then also he kind of revealed a little bit around the hierarchy and what he was kind of expecting from them. So he said there is Dan Ashworth. He is well known in England and he is in the same position as Hugo Vienna at Sporting. One of the things to say is that it's important when the coach or a manager says something. This is something that Dan, who says the same thing to the players. That connection is very important within the club, and then the player will speak to his agent, the agent will speak to him, and he will hear the same thing. It is very important because the players feel that there is no place to hide So we have to be on the same page. And I thought that was really interesting as well, because some of you mentioned this in the comments from previous videos. I kind of agree as well, is that, like with Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, and Ineos, they're around the place. They're at Carrington. Their offices are there. Previously, John Murter and all of those guys were all in London. They weren't around. So Erik ten Hag was having to do all of the kind of management stuff pretty much on his own. Whereas with Ashworth and Wilcox, they are at Carrington and they're watching these things. So what kind of Amorim's, in my opinion, alluding to there is the fact that if he tells, I know, say a player might not be happy with them playing at wing back, for example, or playing in a slightly different position, or maybe not playing, then the message to obviously Amorim, it's his job to kind of have that conversation with the player. But then if the player then goes to his agent rings up Dan Ashworth and says, "Here, why is my player playing in this position, or why is he not playing?" Then the message is exactly the same from Dan Ashworth, and he backs the manager in those situations. Or it could be to do with maybe finding another club or new contracts and all of this stuff. So the kind of key there is to work together, but also, it takes a little bit of pressure, I think, away from Amorim if it's like, no, this is the way we're going to kind of do it. And then that messaging is exactly the same from the hierarchy or the people above him as well, which is key. So I really kind of like that. He had some really other good kind of quotes. You've probably already seen them though, but they were kind of some of the key takeaways that I picked through regarding it. But I thought overall, he's a very charming man with his interviews. I thought he answered all the questions really well, gave a little bit of insight. The kind of overall takeaway, I think, from the interviews, though, is that he is very confident in what he's going to do, whether it works or not. In his own words, he said, well, it doesn't, like, I'm confident that I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it my way. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't matter. He said that, the earth will still spin, the sun will still rise in the morning, was his kind of comments on that as well, which is fair enough. But there is going to be no changing. He is going to stick with his guns, hopefully stick with his philosophy, and then that way, and that way, I think we can build an effective team and an effective squad if he doesn't change it. Because we'll see then whether the players are good enough to actually play that style of play or not, which helps with the recruitment. And it kind of builds from there as well, which is what I think Ineos were looking for under Ten Hag. But the fact that he kept chopping and changing every week and with different games, that's ultimately the reason why he's no longer our manager. Because I remember the Muppeteers saying before that they're not necessarily interested in results as much this season as they are style of play and performance, because they want that foundation to build from so that they can kind of do things the right way. But overall, I'm massively excited. Need to stay grounded though, because he's not reinventing a wheel here. He's a very very energetic, very exciting, very good talking manager. I like the way he comes across. Like he said it's himself, he's excited. It's making me feel a little bit excited as well, but I do want to stay a bit grounded because we ultimately need to give him time and see how we kind of get on and develop. But I think it's overall really impressed with his interviews. Let me know what you think about those though in the comments. And then the final couple of stories I've got for you. There's been a lot of talk recently regarding Angel Gomez. If you remember a couple of videos ago, I think it was, where we were kind of linked with him again. We've been linked with him quite a few times. But apparently Angel Gomez, who's linked with United, has confirmed to Lille that he will leave in 2025. So he is out of contract. He can sign pre-agreements in January. You might be able to get him on a cheaper deal as well if you were willing to pay for him, or if not, then free transfer in the summer. Tottenham are quite heavily linked with him though at the moment. So whether he would be the right profile to come in, obviously we need to give Amorim time to assess the squad and find out which players can play in certain positions. But as we were mentioning there with the recruitment, they are going to be a lot more data driven as well, which is good, because that way you're not misprofiling players. You're getting the players that have the right kind of characters or characteristics to come in and play in a certain position. But Gomez definitely does appear to be a player of interest, potentially coming back. But yeah, confirming that he is definitely leaving Lille in 2025, according to Graham Bailey, who's a bit of a hit and miss journalist. But I think if he was going to, sign a new contract, it probably would have been done before. They're leaving it late anyway, if he does. And then the final story I've got for you, Manchester United are discussing and considering Ederson, a player who is highly valued internally. The club is looking for reinforcements in his position, possibly as early as the winter transfer window. Now, that came from Florian Plettenberg, who is a very credible source. More so, though, I would say, when it comes specifically to Bayern Munich and German kind of stories, not the most credible when it comes to anything outside of Germany or outside of Bayern Munich. So, I would say take that with a bit of a pinch of salt, although he is a really good source. Ederson's a player that we've been linked with quite heavily for a while, but kind of hit and miss. Like we were linked with him a few times in the summer, but then credible sources like Romano and stuff were saying, no, it's Ugarte, we're not going for Ederson. He's the main kind of midfielder that we were going for in the summer. And we have been linked with him a few times, but not so much recently, I would say. But probably a player that we previously scouted or previously looked at. Whether we would be able to afford him, though, in January, because Atalanta are a team, as we've seen with Højlund, that will want top money for their players. I'm not so sure, but would probably fit the style of play. He's an energetic, working kind of midfielder, good at pressing and winning the ball back and stuff. So he does fit the kind of profile I think that we maybe would be looking for to increase the physicality or increase the kind of intensity in midfield, because I do think he is that sort of midfielder. But again, whether we would have that sort of cash available to go for Ederson in January, I'm not entirely convinced by that, but we'll have to wait and see. Another player that we're kind of linked with, again, maybe, but not so much heavily recently, but in the past, there's definitely clearly a player of interest, I think, but we'll have to just wait and see what happens in regards to that, and we need to wait to give Amorim time to assess the squad, because you never know, Toby Collier might turn out to be his number one choice in midfielder, in which case, actually, do we need another midfielder? We just don't know what's going to happen with the style of play, so we need to wait and see. Over the next few weeks, I think, once we've played a few more games, we'll have a clearer, I think, understanding of maybe where the problem positions are going to be going forward, and then potentially, look at which types of players we're going to be bringing in and stuff. But overall, I'm still excited, still grounded though. We need to wait and see what kind of happens. We need to give them time. Like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not going to change it instantly or immediately, as much as I would love that. But overall, I think the interviews from Amorim are really impressive. I've loved all of his interviews so far as well. He does fill me with a little bit of, optimism, which has been missing at United for a while, but we just need to obviously give him that time, give him that support, and see how we get on the pitch. Let me know what you think though in the comments. Let me know what you think about all the topics discussed today, because I enjoy reading your comments. Smash a like on the video on your way out, subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.